All right, let's jump right into it, TJ. So it's been a minute. You've been on the podcast, I think, 4 years ago now, but you're a multi guest at this point.
Yeah, I feel like a bit of an OG.
I know. On the walk over, I was like, we've been in this game for so long. Like, we met 10 years ago. Are we the unks? Are we the OGs? I don't know.
I prefer OG 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
I feel like OG is aspirational. Like, people refer to you as an OG.
It's more respect.
It's respect.
Yeah.
It's they recognize that you possess knowledge that they might not have.
Yeah.
Whereas Unk is just you washed. I'm not accepting that fate just yet.
And I feel like it's kind of an interesting question. Like, Gen Z and millennials are the closest generation, I think, ever in terms of usually the boomers versus the millennials were like two different stratospheres apart.
Yeah.
But I know we're going to get more into social and marketing, but I'm sure you have some thoughts on just like how the generations are closer than before, because we both grew up on this digital social age.
Yeah, I think about this a lot,
Yeah.
particularly with athletes and younger employees. There's just so much more access to information.
Yeah.
And
Information age.
I think the democratization of information, being able to hop on a ChatGPT and to get a full-fledged answer, or the internet at any corner of the internet,
Yep.
has allowed people to possess just way more information than ever. And that has kind of closed the knowledge gap to a certain degree. The key difference, though, is lived experience. And you can't manufacture whether dealing with the company that has gone through a layoff or an acquisition or getting hired or getting fired or all the things, or having to hire and fire people, man. Those are real experiences that you can't manufacture.
Yeah.
So I think that is the lone delineation at this point. The information is accessible to everybody, but the actual lived experience is still, to me, a bit of the secret sauce, which is why old guys like us can stick around.
keep the audience posted. Last time we chatted at length on the pod, Global Head of Sports over at Twitter spent 7 years, 10 years there. You were there for a second, but you're doing a lot of things now, advising and consulting, but also Arctos. So walk the audience through what the new TJ's looking like these days.
Wow. So, it's fascinating. I haven't done this in a while, so I have to. This will be the first time
You don't have your elevator
spoken
pitch on
about
TJ's.
out loud. Yeah. So in 2022, Elon Musk acquired Twitter, and I was there until probably mid 2023, if I recall correctly. I resigned around May or June.
Did those 6 months get a chapter in your book?
Yeah. And our sponsors did not cut the check this particular go around, so won't speak too in depth about that. But while I was probably the last year at Twitter, I served on the advisory board at Arctos.
That's right.
Which was I would dare say a life-changing appointment for me, because I had worked in social and digital for so long, but Arctos was exposing me to a completely new world of sport, of knowledge,
ROI,
and all of that. And I was just a sponge. And fortunately, I lived and breathed digital and social so much, for better or worse, that I was adding very differentiated value to them as an advisor as well. So that was kind of like my last year at Twitter. Right before the transition to X, I resigned, and then very quickly, my role at Arctos was expanded to be an operating partner.
That's awesome.
And that everybody's like, "What do you do there? Like, do you wear suits and stuff?" And my role is very simple. I mean, I think when you're thinking about traditional private equity, most people just think about sourcing capital and deploying capital, getting money and issuing money. In this particular instance, I think with Arctos and really the broader industry have come to the understanding that yes, capital is really important, but as you work across a portfolio, you want to show differentiated value.
Yeah.
And there are different ways to go about doing that, but one of the approaches that Arctos has taken is we want subject matter experts, we want industry experts to be able to deploy to our portfolio to provide a different set of expertise.
It's not just capital, it's knowledge.
That's
it's
correct.
Value shares,
That's correct. So my scope, my remit at Arctos is very specifically to advise teams on digital fan engagement, the creator economy, ecosystem connectivity. I can call a David Brickley, I can call John Cruz at YouTube, or the folks at TikTok, or Meta and Snapchat and Onmal and those guys, and they're all friends. And I've worked with these folks for a long time. These are deep partnerships that have existed for a decade plus, and that provides value to my folks. And then you think about us being here at Stagwell. I've had the luxury of working really closely with this team from the inception of Sport Beach. A lot of that is because of the work that I led at Twitter when we would come to Cannes each and every year. Ironically enough, this footprint that we're at used to be Twitter Beach.
Interesting.
So it feels a little familiar. It feels like a home game. You know what I mean?
How many years in Cannes now?
Woo!
Yeah.
I definitely didn't have gray hairs, and my beard did not connect at the time. I was a little patchy. I would say the first one was probably 17.
Oh, wow.
16 or 17.
8 years.
I don't say that too often, but I've been drinking rosé annually out here for a few years.
I wanted to give you a compliment. Keisha Taylor from Scripps Network sat in that chair yesterday. I gave her a similar compliment, but I think you're someone that definitely understands like your net worth is your network. And I've been inspired by the way you move, just in terms of the connections you build. Like, obviously been, and I'll say this on a public forum, so appreciative of you connecting me to people too. And I know that's strategic. I know enough in the world to know that you don't just wake up and like, yeah, man, I'm just a cool person people like. So I always kind of geek out over how do you approach relationship building? How do you approach just being a good dude in so many different circles that allow you to, leverage that, but also have people gravitate towards you?
Yeah, man. First and foremost, thank you, man.
Of course.
And I think the reason why I'm able to leverage my network is because one, like, I just generally speaking, I have a servant mentality.
Yeah.
And my objective is always to add value, and I think it's probably because I've sharpened my tools in the partnership space for so long.
Yeah.
And if you're a partnerships executive, your objective is to ensure that your partner sees value in working together, right? So that is kind of just endemic to me. Another thing I would say is I know dope people who do dope things. So when a team or a league or a company is like, hey, we need to do best in class social, I know who to call.
Yeah.
And I don't doubt whether they're in good hands if I say, DB, yo, this brand, this Fortune 100 brand is thinking about social and digital. Can you run this play with me?
Right,
I already know what you're gonna do with it, because we've done it together for so long.
Right.
So a lot of it is the trust that I have in the people within my network too. And if we're adding value on both sides of the coin, typically speaking, it actually deepens the partnership even more.
That's true. And you take those connections seriously. Like, I'm going to make sure I provide value. I'm not going to take a risk on someone I just met. I got to make sure that the value will be there on the connection too.
And I remember, a few times we've had these types of conversations offline.
Yeah.
And I'll hit you on the side and be like, yo, DB, this is a big one.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I need
Bring
you to
the big
lock in on
guns,
this one. Exactly. And you're like, say less. I know what that means. So that's helpful too.
Let's talk about just where you feel social is going. I mean, again, we kind of joked earlier about the OGs, and even at STN, I remember begging for a $500 a month retainer, and now there's clients that have paid us $200,000, $300,000 a month, and just seeing that difference in 12 years.
A month is
crazy, but we are
buying the wrong business.
I always joke that.
Damn, $200 a month is a big number.
I always joke that we used to be in the broom closet, as you know.
The music started when you said $200 a month.
It's a party. No, but we used to be in the broom closet, not taken serious, and tried to scream from the rooftops. And now, to your earlier point, every Fortune 100 company is like, if we don't figure out social now, we're out of business in 5 years. So where do you see it all now and where it's going for everybody?
Well, one thing I would say is I very much feel I understand what it looks like to sit on the other side of it, because I lived it for so long. I just assumed that it would be something that would always be very native to me.
Yeah.
And now that, I'm in an office and I'm wearing blazers and loafers, I'm not in the timeline as much.
Yeah, practitioner, right?
Yeah, my instinct is still to wake up and scroll, not because it's unhealthy, but because I like to see what's moving the timeline, and that'll never change. But the actual like nuts and bolts of social just changes and evolves so quickly. The algorithms change every day. The formats change every day. The manner with which you can, develop and create content in real time changes. The resources required to do it changes. Now with AI, that's completely revolutionized.
Slight wrench in the process.
How people staff these teams and the type of content they can create, and part of one of the things that is important to me is when I go to our franchises across the Arctos portfolio is to show love to the CMOs and the content teams who are doing the work. You got an 82 game schedule, you've got a 160 plus game schedule, and you got to be on the pitch, on the court, and then wake up and do the recap and be in the office and talk to brands. Like, that social shit is real.
Well,
work,
even
man.
we know a mutual friend, Katie Daly at ESPN, and she reorgs every single year because social moves so quickly. And like you said, and it's not even reorg is a I think a bad term for it oftentimes, but it's like, no, reorg in a good way. Like, okay, TikTok is now becoming a priority. I got to get a team on this, or how are we going to approach AI? But it moves so quickly that you have to be entrepreneurial and really enjoy the change of everything. Right.
One of my favorite people to talk to. I try to call him once a month, once a quarter. Is Omar Raja.
He's amazing. Yeah,
just because they routinely find ways to stay a step ahead of the curve, and he's been
a data scientist, really.
100%. And I tell him all the time. I mean, I think people scroll through the timeline and assume that social is just vibes, and taste and feel is important. But there's a method to the madness. There's a science to it. There's a strategy to it that I think is very much more than meets the eye. When you meet a guy like Omar, you recognize he knows within the first 10 seconds of a post whether it's going to hit or not. And he recognizes that just because of years of reps, and he understands what engagement really looks like. So I just try to continue to be a student of the game to the extent that I can. But the biggest thing I would say is just the evolution that we've always known to exist in the space is even more rapid. And with artificial intelligence, I think we're all kind of scratching our heads.
I kind of equate it to, every medium is almost similar. You can learn from radio, TV, but if you remember the linear days, it was all about your lead-in and trying to figure out the algorithm of like what the rating is going to do if I have this lead-in or this lead-in. Back in the day with Seinfeld or whatever. I wanted to ask you, because you're so close, have so many relationships with athletes, and we've seen the $100 million deals for the Kelsey brothers and these really podcasts and player-led storytelling. How do you see that space like as it is now, and just how it evolves as really it's all about less than you need ESPN to put a mic in your face. You can just like fire the mic up yourself.
Yeah, it's incredible to see athletes, influencers, creators, and really the creator economy as a whole, which includes athletes, take the main stage. It's super dope. People, the voice that people have now exists to a much larger degree than we've ever seen in the past. It's funny, you kind of flash back over the years. It was like, oh wow, this guy's tweeting a lot. He is directly engaging his audience, a guy like a Kevin Durant years ago. And then that has evolved to like a person
look what Tyrese did after being
of course,
Knicks, right?
Of course. So you see that all these athletes now are social and digital natives. They were born in this, so they really don't know much other than fully exposing themselves and giving everybody a look behind the curtain. The one thing I would say that will always be important, as far as I'm concerned, is infrastructure and ecosystem. It's one thing for you to be LeBron and to own, Spring Hill, or to own an incredible property like the Shop, but distribution is still really important, and having strategic partnerships from an infrastructural perspective is important, because you got to amplify your shit, man. And I think a lot of these athletes and just creators in general understand that their channels are scaled distribution platforms, but you do benefit from having multiple touch points that allow you to amplify your reach. Because some people have incredible content or pods and nobody sees them.
Yeah.
If you don't have a great social team that's clipping off the best moments from your podcast, ain't nobody gonna see it.
Yeah.
People aren't sitting for 3-hour podcasts for each and every single athlete they have an affinity for. So distro becomes super important, which is why the role of STN will continue to be pivotal, man, because people need to understand how to extract the best of moments from whatever long form they're working on to share with folks.
We have like 30 seconds left, but
Wow.
final take from you, because we
Sheesh.
see private equity get involved in sports. We see Fortune 500 brands get involved in sports. Why is sports such an amazing investment as we go forward the next 10
Shot
years?
clock. I got 24 seconds.
Go.
Sports is the ultimate galvanizer. It's the ultimate community-based platform, and that'll never change. And it's live. It'll always be live. So people ask me what I think about sports rights and franchise values. I still think it's all undervalued.
Yeah.
When you look at Nielsen ratings, the top watch programs are always live sports each and every year. So there's still a significant amount of headway, and I think that we're still kind of scratching the surface as it relates to rights and fan engagement around sports. So we're well positioned to be at the forefront, or to continue to be at the forefront of what moves people the most, what makes people feel, and that's
Once
sport.
Netflix said they're not getting involved in sports, then they go Christmas Day and the Beyonce came out. I'm like, oh, it's a wrap. They're
That's
here
right.
to stay.
That's
So
right.
thanks so
That's
much,
right.
TJ.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
all the
having me,
knowledge,
man.
man. Thanks so much. Sport Beats. Thanks.